Welcome to Beyond the Veil, where your questions meet real talk about faith, culture, and life. It's your space, your story. No judgment. Let's dive in.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, in whatever time zone of the world that you may be tuning in right now. So, whether you are working out at the gym, stuck in traffic, or you're relaxing after a long day, or probably you're doing some house chores while listening to this podcast, I want to say thank you for tuning in. Welcome to Beyond the Veil. So if you have been with us from the start, you are in for a treat. And if you are just jumping in, I want you to buckle up as you are about to get the full experience. If you have been following along, you are aware that we began a series on timing. Yes, timing appears to control everything, major and minor decisions that we make. So in the first episode, we looked at the Kairos and the Chronos moments, where we established that the Chronos moment has to do with calendars, deadlines, just about the chronological time, the ticking clock. But Kairos, on the other hand, is a divinely appointed time where everything falls into place. It is a timing that is determined by purpose rather than the passing of time. So we established that Kairos is something that is divinely orchestrated. So if you missed it, that which was the first episode, do not have to worry. Since you are here, you could be gracious enough to go to the previous episode, since that is the foundation of whatever we'll be discussing today, and just go check it out as soon as you can. So we'll be looking at a very simple topic again, which is timing and decision making. So when it comes to making decisions, timing is like the secret sauce. Knowing when to do something is just as important as knowing what to do. So I want you to consider this. So timing can make like all the difference. Whether you are investing in cryptocurrency, you are landing an ideal job, or you're probably starting out a romantic relationship. Good timing is not something that just happens, but it often requires a combination of foresight, patience, and planning. So when it comes to timing and decision making, one thing I have observed is that when you move too fast, you may most likely fail to see the wider picture. But if you wait a little long, the chance may not present itself again. So according to research, timing involves finding a balance between perceiving outside cues and being internally prepared. So according to the University of Chicago study, those who consider their preparedness before making decisions have a higher chance of long-term success. Even though I do have a personal, that is the word, I may want to differ, but yes, it's in a way true, but it doesn't apply to all circumstances. So I want us to kick off this podcast. We've kicked off anyway. So we've kicked off anyway. But I want to begin by stating fallacies, or what I've observed as an ideology that may be in a way has affected us and affected timing or decision making that we just adopted, but we just do not know the origin. Probably will not really settle down to challenge their mindset. For example, I'm sure many of us must have had someone somewhere say it will happen if it's meant to be. That may sound divine, that may sound scriptural or spiritual, as the case may be. It's as though in movies you hear something like the universe will make it happen. With enough patience, whatever you design will appear. The reality, however, is I know that thinking is false. Time is not about passively waiting for a sign to fall into your lap. Time is not about waiting for the universe to do something. Of course, we have faith, but faith does not encourage inaction. Even while it does encourage us to trust in God's plan, faith involves action, and faith involves intention. There is a fine line between accepting responsibility for your decision and having faith in the process. And another thing that I would want us to dismiss is something known as the perfect time fallacy. So I would say this is an attractive notion that every choice has to have a perfect moment. So for we Gen Z in particular, we are navigating a world where, of course, we grew up meeting everything at our fingertips. So decision seems to be a swipe away. You want to order, of course you know what to do. You want to purchase something online, of course you know what you do. And all of this stuff takes minutes to achieve, right? This might be a trap. As good as it is, sincerely, of course I've benefited from it, but we would experience missed opportunity and our life may be on a hold if whatever our thinking comes from this misconception, the perfect timing, which can be a trap, the never ending loop of waiting for that one moment may just never arrive. To be very honest, waiting for that perfect moment to just seize that opportunity may just never arrive. What do I mean? So factually speaking, right, just factually speaking, awareness and preparation have a big impact on timing and decision making. So a concept that psychology discuss is known as the decision making window. This is the point where you have acquired sufficient data, considered your options, and are prepared to take action. But if you miss that window, they call it something like you're paralyzed by your own analysis. From the standpoint of faith, there is a fallacy that is also untrue, right? We learn from the beauty of divine timing from the Bible. We are reminded that to everything there is a season, to a time for every purpose under the heavens. So that is Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1. So what does that tell us? It suggests something that our focus shouldn't be on perfection, waiting for the perfect timing. But we can see there that timing has to do with purpose, not necessarily the perfect or ideal moment or timing. Said for everything there is a season, a time for every purpose, a time for every purpose. Emphasis on the phrase, a time for every purpose. So that means that we should focus not on the perfection, the ideal moment to take action. Why? Because timing is attached to purpose. So this isn't about settling for less. This isn't about rushing to take decisions. This isn't about being impatient at all. But it's all about trusting that even in the imperfect moments, there is a plan larger than our own. This can profoundly free us while encouraging us to move with faith, not just we are waiting for the stars to align, but when the time feels it is right, the right time. So the verse emphasizes on the importance of discretion, acting, waiting, and trusting are all appropriate at different times. However, take the note of balance, that understanding when to act and when to let go is more important than simply waiting. There was something I said before, which I would like to re-emphasize again, that when it comes to timing, it isn't about perfection. It isn't about the ideal moment, because timing is attached to purpose. Timing is attached to purpose. I'll say it again. Timing is attached to purpose. So how does this affect our culture? How does this affect our life? How does this affect our faith? To bring it home to you, my Gen Z, this life, of course I am a Gen Z, and of course I know my audience are also Gen Z. One thing I've observed among good Gen Zs is that instant gratification is valued in our culture. Going viral by posting a TikTok hasn't made it easier anyway. I'm not against going viral, of course, but I'm just setting an example that sometimes I see certain posts and they're like, everyone, like people just want to go viral all at once, but it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So another thing that I know, because I'm just making an example of how instant gratification is valued in our culture. I'm not saying going viral is a bad thing, by the way. Let me just give another example instead. So another example is placing an online order and you get it in minutes, right? It might be challenging to trust timing and process where there is a constant need for immediate outcomes, right? The worst part is that the greatest things in life frequently requires patience and deliberate work. You just have to be intentional. This could entail devoting time to cultivating meaningful relationships rather than jumping into them. Then you now begin to realize over time that for a relationship to work, be it casual, be it romantic relationship, it involves work from both parties. In terms of culture, it can entail holding off on sharing your thoughts onto the ideal time or the ideal moments rather than following trends. So additionally, having faith may entail learning to trust God's timing even in the face of uncertainty. This now speaks to decision making. This speaks to decision making, because having faith is all about trusting God. And there are times that if you're following God sincerely and genuinely following God, you would realize that it takes faith to work, and you must always not you must always dare, not that it's intentional, but there would always be uncertainty. Like you're not even prepared. Sometimes God will just say, go to where? What would I eat? Who do I know? But yet you just take it and just leave. That speaks about decision making, and that speaks about what I said earlier on, that timing is attached to purpose and not necessarily the ideal moment. Another example, okay, I think I'll say it later, but it has to do with marriage. So additionally, we are a generation that is cautious and always wait for the right time, which may never arrive, which may be due to some of this cultural illusion. It affects our approach to relationship, it affects our approach to our work, and it even affects our personal development. Knowing that wise choices may be made in less than ideal circumstances is essential in time when everything from social media to world news cycles moves in a dizzying pace. You just have to keep up, like never ending. So it's about creating a culture that acts wisely, and not only when everything is ideal. There just may not be that ideal moment to take a decision. It may not just come. I'm not saying you may not experience it, but life doesn't always present that ideal moment for you to move, that ideal moment for you to start that business, that ideal moment for you to network, that ideal moment for you to get married. And I know I said something about marriage. Even when I'm looking at myself like, what did you just say? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that is just sweet. But understanding timing helps you make a better decision. Just know this. If you wouldn't get anything from this podcast, from this episode, I want to get something from this episode, that timing is attached to purpose. Timing. When it comes to timing and decision making, know one thing: timing is attached to purpose and not the ideal moments. So understanding timing makes you make better decisions. You discover that not every door must be opened, right? And not every delay is a rejection, and not every chance is meant for you. To be very honest, that's just an understanding of everything, an understanding of timing and decision making. By understanding that timing is attached to purpose, you make better decisions. You obviously make better decisions. I like to share my journey with timing, but I would start with this podcast. So speaking of my preparedness, right, I would say for sure that I've got a couple of friends, like when I told them that I would be beginning a podcast, everybody was surprised. Of course, I understand. Calvin, this is not your thing. Like, among the things that I envision you doing with your life, podcast is not one of them. I understand. So the question now is, how then did I know that it was time for me to begin a podcast? Of course, I never spoke to them about it. I was not secretive. I was just dreaming. But I just started a podcast. Why? Because I knew that it was time. So how do I even say this? So speaking of preparedness, right? I started starting this podcast because I started I released the first episode last week. So I'm saying I'm starting this podcast. So I didn't suddenly decide to start a podcast after just waking up. I did not, to be very honest with you, I did not decide to start a podcast just waking up and just doing one or two things together, putting them together and blah. So I spent weeks stepping out away from my comfort zone, chatting, doing YouTube videos, listening to podcasts. I just knew it was time. Truthfully, it was time. If you want me to be honest with you, of course, this is a safe space, and I will have to be honest. If we were to be about starting a podcast, I would have started in 2022. To be very honest, and many people are like, I know many people listen to my podcast who may be my friends, who are my friends, will be surprised. Are you serious? Yeah, I would have started the podcast in 2022, but I never did. It just was never time. To be very honest, now I'm grateful I'm starting now. Probably if I started then, I would have stopped along the line and probably continue again. But I just know this is the perfect time to start it. Though there are a lot of background story that only a few know, but it is the right time. I just knew it was time to start a podcast. I have an understanding, by God's grace, that this podcast is not about me. There's a purpose attached to the podcast. There is a purpose attached to the podcast, so I know that. So if it's by preparation, to be very honest, I don't think I'm really that prepared. Nah, I'm not that prepared. Speaking of having resources, speaking of having sufficient information, I'm not. If it's by preparedness, I'm not that prepared. I wouldn't rate myself a 50. Though I may have certain informations based on doing research, right? But I wouldn't give myself a pass mark. But I just knew it was time to begin this podcast. And funny enough, the podcast premiered right January 15. But I knew it was time to start a podcast November 18, 2024. But I did not begin till last week. I didn't launch out my first episode last week. But I just knew it was time. It was why, because during those times, of course, I was learning. I was talking to a few friends, watching videos, listening to podcasts from people I love and respect and honor, especially in the body of Christ. People like Ezinezar, people like Ebele Light. I was just listening to their podcasts. I was going to their YouTube videos, and I was just learning one of the things. Yes, I may not have started a video podcast yet, but I was just learning something because I knew it was time, so I needed to do research. But even as at that, I'm still not fully prepared for it. But I just had to start something because I know it is time, and because I know that timing is attached to purpose. Okay, so another one which I would want to say again, which another example, but not personal, but just due to observation, because of the generation that we are in, and that has to do with timing in relationships. Okay, especially timing in romantic relationship. Romantic relationship, and this was a teaser, and of course, there's going to be an episode dedicated to just relationships. Timing and relationship is part of the series. I'm tempted. I want to at least just say one or two things, but I don't want to fall into the temptation. But I want you to relax. I want you to wait for the episodes coming. And yeah, just truthfully speaking, I want to speak about timing and romantic relationships, because I think things that I see and I'm like, this isn't it. I think this I read and I'm like, this isn't it. This doesn't align. This is not just it. I'm fighting myself not to share anything. This is not just this. But I want you to go take a moment and just to reflect on what I've said. Timing has to do with purpose. Timing and decision making has everything to do with purpose, and very, 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 not very, very, but very little to do. Yeah, very, very little to do with the ideal moment. I've seen people get married. I said, I just know it's time to get married. If it's by preparedness, if it's by ideal moment. It's not it, because what makes an ideal moment is not just preparation mentally for that kind of a work, and that kind of a life. I mean, marriage is really something very serious. And if it's by preparation, where is the finance? Where are the resources? How would I take care of, like, the thoughts of our young guys? How would I take care of someone's daughter? I've not successfully taken care of myself, which is quite obvious. Like, everyone is seeing your life, see that you live your life. And like, I have not successfully taken care of myself. I'm not successfully taking care of my life. And now I am not, and right now I'm now in charge of someone else's daughter's life. And the lady may look at it and like, I've not done what I need to do in my life. Right? Look at the person, like, there's nothing to this guy in quotes. Obviously, there's nothing to this guy in quotes. But I've seen young people like myself, Gen Z like myself, take that leap of faith and say, nah, I just have to do it. It's not about the perfect timing, so to speak. I'm sorry, the ideal moment, so to speak. I just know it is time. It is time. And they go ahead and do it. And a few months down the line, few years down the line, they like, this is the best decision I made. I've seen, speaking of marriage, I've seen older people are giving advice. They're like, just do it. Yeah. Oh, okay. But yeah, since I'm thinking about it, right, I'm like, yeah. Even the way I'm even saying it, yeah. But to be very honest, let me just emphasize it again, please and please, that when it comes to timing and decision making, always realize this, always remember this, that timing and decision making is tied to purpose, not the ideal moment. To everything there is a season, and to every time there is a purpose. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1. There is a purpose. Timing is about purpose. Timing is our purpose. And you just know, of course, it's bigger than you. It is bigger than you. Timing is all about purpose. If you don't take anything away from this episode, I want you to take this away. Timing is all about purpose. Timing and decision making go hand in hand. So you are not just a passenger in life, you are an active participant. So I want you to pray, I want you to plan, I want you to prepare, but then move. You may not have everything in place. Move. Trust the one who has called you. Trust the Lord who has helped you in time past. Trust the Lord who is about to help you. So there is a sweet spot where Chronos meets Kairos. In case you don't know what I'm saying, you're just joining this episode for the very first time, go to the previous episode that has to do with understanding timing, so you could have a more understanding about Chronos and Kairos. So if peradventure you know the meaning, but you can still go and listen, so as to have, you never can tell what may help in the episode. I believe that retention, and emphasis on truth. When a truth is we emphasize, you tend to learn more and get something that you never got. So again, timing is attached. Timing and decision making is attached to purpose. If this resonates with you, I want you to share this podcast with a friend. Do not forget to follow. And we're going to explore in the coming, let me just give a teaser. In the next 2 episodes, that will be handling internal pressures and timing. That may be in the next 2 episodes, and the next episode is going to be handling external pressure and timing. Right? Just look at how it is going. Like I said, it's going to be a series. The first one was understanding timing. Now we are looking at timing and decision making, and we are proceeding. The next one is obviously going to be when timing there's a conflict between societal and cultural expectation with timing. That is going to be the next we'll be looking at in the next episode. So I want you to stay tuned. I want you to share this podcast with people that you know it will benefit. Enjoy your moments. Enjoy this time you have. Enjoy it. So until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep seeking the truth. And that is what Beyond the Veil is all about. See you and catch you in the next episode. Bye bye.